Welcome to the Bookers Alliance podcast, where we hold the pencil and the pencil is power. Coming at you right now is your host, Marky Mark, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Donaldson. Join us as we discuss the ever-changing landscape of professional wrestling. So hang on tight, you jabronis, and enjoy the ride. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for joining today's episode of the Bookers Alliance podcast. We coming right at you from Dallas Cowboys Stadium today, getting ready for the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. Frank, who you got? Put it right on blast. Who you got?
I'm always going to side with Iron Mike Tyson. I'm always going with Iron Mike. There's no other answer in boxing for me for that. Jake Paul's, what do we call him? A rank amateur.
Uh-huh.
And Mike Tyson is probably the most dominant heavyweight boxer of the modern generation. So can't really go against him, right?
Can't go against him. Tyson all the way here from my viewpoint. Of course, I'm an old head Tyson fan from way back in the day. So, yeah, to me, Tyson's the GOAT, will always be the GOAT. Even if he gets his ass knocked out at 58, he will still be the GOAT to me. He ain't going to change nothing.
I mean, and for Jake Paul, if he wins, he gets to say, I knocked out Mike Tyson. And regardless, and nobody going to asterisk the age or anything back. He's just going to say, I knocked out Mike Tyson. I'm thinking of Mike, and I'm thinking that he knows that this kid will make all that credibility off of saying I knocked out Mike. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mike bit off an ear, a nose, a throat, whatever the case may be. Eat his children, as Mike used to say. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike doesn't turn into the old Mike for it.
I will say this. I've heard two things in this fight, and they both scare me. Two things. First thing, I heard Jake Paul say that his MO in this fight was to frustrate Mike.
So he's going to run around the whole time.
I don't think Mike's the guy you want to frustrate, though.
I mean, if he keeps running, at 58 years old, Mike ain't going to run him down.
He ain't going to run him down, that's for sure.
How long is that going to be, like a half hour worth of fighting or whatever? Yeah, Mike ain't going to trail him for a half hour. After a while, Mike's going to just stand there and just wait.
Yeah, we get 8 2-minute rounds. But the second thing that I heard, and this came from Mike, they asked Mike about Jake and how, he looked good. He's learning some skills. He's actually developing his boxing game.
Well, yeah.
And they asked Mike, what his thought was. And he said, he's a manufactured killer, but I'm a natural born killer.
There you go.
You got to
figure Jake Paul's learning he's getting $50 million for this fight. And like he's going to a 9-to-5 and he don't have nothing to do but dedicate his time to preparing for this fight. Plus, you don't want to get embarrassed by, you done signed up for this quote unquote exhibition that turned into a real fight. You don't want to go out there and get outclassed. You don't want to be out embarrassed. 58-year-old Mike knock you out in 30 seconds. I mean, that's it, right? At that point, you take your money and you tap on out.
Y'all just remember, y'all youngins out there, just remember this man's prior quickest knockout, 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Knocked a man out in 8 seconds.
I think that guy just quit. He was scared coming into the fight.
Yeah, his quarter threw in the towel.
Yeah, he was scared coming into the fight. I mean, I remember back when he fought Spinks in the 80s, and Spinks was stalling to come out there, and they said Mike was back there just punching a brick wall.
Yep.
And Spinks was, the more they talked about it, the more scared he got. 91 seconds later, Spinks laid down on him. I don't think, and Spinks wasn't knocked out, but the fear on that man's face when he looked up at him, Spinks willingly laid down and let the end of that fight just happen because he knew he was about to get his block knocked off.
A lot of sponsors going around for that fight, but let's talk about our sponsor for this
right.
week's podcast. We got Sazerac Rye, good tasting rye whiskey from the Buffalo Trace people.
Oh yeah,
so cheers to a good fight this coming up Friday.
Good fight, good night.
Absolutely. Good rye whiskey. Good rye whiskey. All right, today's episode, we're talking about bad guys. Since we're talking about Mike, bad guy.
Baddest man on the planet. Isn't that what Vince called him?
Yep. So we're talking about bad guys, but we got a little bit to talk about here before we get to bad guys. We got to talk about the Bloodline and how we've gotten ourselves into war games.
Those are a group of bad guys right there. So let's get into it.
So we have the OG Bloodline.
That's their name now.
Has finally reunited. You got Roman, Jimmy, Jay, and Sammy. The OG Bloodline.
They're missing somebody though, right?
They are missing somebody.
I feel like that's an important piece, but
they're missing the glue.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, we got a couple weeks left. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he won't. Maybe there'll be some swerves going on. Who knows? But until we get Paul back, I feel like we're not complete.
And it's funny, we think of Paul, we think of him as the wise man, right?
Uh-huh.
There was once upon a time a wise man once said about Paul that he's the hemorrhoid on the butthole of life.
There you
remember
go.
that comment?
I do remember hearing that. Good Lord.
That's old JR.
What a way of tagging him. What a way of tagging that guy. He labeled him damn right.
When him and old Paul was commentating.
Yeah, when they had to commentate together for that little bit when King found himself in a little bit of outside trouble.
Yeah, a little trouble there, King.
All right, King.
But so we got the OG bloodline that has reunited going up against the Timu bloodline.
There you go.
Of Solo and Tamatonga and Tongaloa and Jacob Fatu. I love you, Solo.
He does love his Solo. He loves his Solo like Mr. T loves his mama. We gonna carry that one all the way through.
But now we've gotten ourselves into quite a mystery, though. Apparently, there's a fifth man on either side.
Why?
Exactly.
Out of all the shit that you had to come up with,
the fifth man.
Why are we convoluting this a little bit more by reuniting the bloodline, and now we're gonna splash somebody in there who don't fit?
So, I mean, okay, Survivor Series used to be 5-on-5, right?
Yeah, 100 years ago.
So War Games at Survivor Series, the 5-on-5.
War Games traditionally, though, was 4-on-4. It was always the Horsemen versus Dusty's 4, or Sting's 4, or whoever the hell else was 4. Even the Dangerous Alliance got in there one time, but it should have been 4. So I feel like it could still be 4-on-4, and we'd be okay.
The poster shows 4-on-4.
Yeah, it does, because the screwing it up, putting anybody else in there, nothing good's coming out of this, right?
Yeah, but so far we have had hints of Seth Rollins.
No.
We have had hints of Braun Breaker.
No.
There's suspected hints of Bronson Reed.
No.
I mean, none of that makes sense.
So the only two people, there's only 2 human beings left in the WWE at least. I mean, we could wander off into like Dean Ambrose, if we went all the way to 80. But let's keep it in reality. There's only 2 other men walking that could fit in this group right now on either side, and that's Cody and Rock.
Correct.
Those are the only 2 people that naturally fit into this equation.
There's a third if you want to talk Cody, and if Rock can't do it, the third would be KO.
Yeah.
But still, KO and Solo, there's never
exactly. Plus,
the reason why KO is mad at Cody
is because he teamed with the bloodline. So, and then I could see him possibly team with the other bloodline to go against them because of that. But still, that's unnecessary, right? Cody and KO can do their own thing away from the whole bloodline at Survivor Series and still get away with it, right?
Right.
Them wandering into that match there is unnecessary. But if they had to do it, okay, I get it. We could even go as far back as to say Rock was the benefactor that that originally got KO to turn on Cody when KO was riding around in a Lamborghini, and had to get that cost money, and so it had to come from someone. You could even tie it into that if you just felt the need to. But if they don't go with those 2 guys, what the hell else are we getting it? What are we doing anything else for? Out of those other names you said, what in the hell is the purpose?
There is none. It's just to satisfy a 5-on-5. But so for The Rock to even be considered getting in the mixture now, we've thrown The Rock's name out at War Games, but it wasn't anything to do with in match. It would be more storyline.
Yeah.
Because we all know that somehow he's going to flip on Roman, and I mean that's the belief.
At least we hope.
We hope. But at the same time, could you see The Rock involved in a War Games match knowing that Mr. Hollywood can't get jacked up for real? There's not going to be any table spots for him. There's not going to be this, that, and the other.
If you remember last year's War Games, remember Randy was the last man, and he kind of sauntered out there really, really late in the match. He put on a good couple of moves or whatnot. Didn't really take any bumps. He just came out.
Though 2 years in a row.
Who remembers that shit from last year besides me and you? I mean,
that's true.
If it's The Rock, if you start talking about The Rock coming back, all else goes out the window. Anything we've done before is gone. At this point, it's all brand new because it's The Rock. We haven't seen The Rock in the ring since Mania.
And you ain't going to put no Rock in the shark cage and make him sit there and wait.
No, so
and you sure ain't going to have him starting.
Exactly. And you're not going to introduce him and then have him just stand around out there.
Right.
So if he's in the match, that's the only way he comes in. But you can get away with doing the same thing they did for Randy and then bring CM Punk back at the end of it and rain on all their heat. That, of course, would never happen with Rock. No. That's Rock's spot where he rains on everybody else's parade, not gets his parade rained on. But, I mean, you could do that. That would be the only way. But And I mean, they could still get there. Let's say the names you pulled out. Let's say they do Cody and KO, right?
Right.
Rock could jump KO in the back, or he could pay him off again in the back, or whatever the case may be, and wander his way out there to get in the match with Cody, and then KO could come and interfere later, or blah, blah. There's 100 different ways you could do it. But the easiest answer is always the simplest. That why? Why not just stay out of it?
We don't need the 5-on-5.
Exactly. Stick with the 4-on-4. And if somebody comes out there, if those other two guys want to come out there in the match and interrupt, okay, great. But don't advertise them as being involved in it because there's no purpose.
Well, everybody thought, as SmackDown went off the air Friday night, everybody thought, okay, we got our 4. We got our 4-on-4.
Exactly.
Nobody, and I mean, there might have been some scuttlebutt somewhere around about it, but nobody was saying, oh, but where's our 5-on-5? Where's it at?
No.
Nobody was. And then out of nowhere, there's a backstage clip of Sammy, Jimmy, and Jay going, who's going to be our 5th guy?
Yeah, and then Solo and them talk about, we need a 5th.
And why?
Right. And I mean, but the rumblings that I heard about the whole thing was that they were going to bring in another, a Bloodline member like Hikuleu I heard about, or, apparently there's a 7-foot Samoan. That might be Hikuleu. I don't know. But they're talking about, they're going to bring in more Bloodline. And I'm like, okay, that works for Solo's group. Don't work for Roman's group, right?
Because it's
Roman's
OG
group is the
Bloodline.
OG, right? You can't introduce a new character into the OG Bloodline. Right. You can get away with it, but they don't have a 5th guy for Roman's group. And if you have to manufacture a 5th guy for Solo's group, why not just stay out of the 5th guy thing? This ain't the NWO. You don't need the 3rd man.
So let me spin this. Booker's Alliance. Here we go. Let's fantasy book. Let's own the spot. I just had an idea pop in my head. It's probably going to suck like hell, but let's just throw it out here.
Well, it ain't gonna be no worse than what they're already doing because this whole 5th man thing is effing it up more than what I'm willing to accept.
If they have to have a 5th man, Granted, again, this is far fetched. If they have to have a 5th man, what if Jacob, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa turn on Solo? What if? And Jacob.
Well, we've got a 6th man.
Not a 6th man. But Solo tucks his tail between his legs and goes back to Roman. He's OG at that point. That's OG. They was 5.
Yeah.
OG Bloodline. They was 5.
Right.
And then 2 new guys come in to be with Jacob and his team.
So
that could work.
So it could work, but
it would still suck.
There's a lot of steps to get to that point.
Not enough time to set it up.
Exactly. There ain't enough time to get, because at that point Solo would have to give the Ulafala back to Roman, acknowledge him as tribal chief.
Right.
And Jacob would have to assume the lead of the new bloodline and say he's challenging for tribal chief,
right,
and introduce 2 guys. I mean, shit, we ain't got enough weeks for that at this point. We got 2 Fridays left. Right?
It's November 30th, Mark.
Exactly. We got 2 Fridays left. We can get in there in that little bit of time. And if they do get there, it's gonna be so damn confusing that nobody and their brother will understand what the hell happened.
I was just trying to throw it out there.
I feel you. I mean, you're trying to rescue a bad angle that we're going down. Unfortunately, unless you go Cody and Rock, there ain't no rescue.
Nah.
If you pick who were the first people, you said like Seth and Bronson, they already got a feud of their own.
Yep.
Totally unrelated to Bloodline, on the wrong damn show for Bloodline.
Correct.
Not even affiliated with Sammy or Jim or Jay, who are on Raw. No constructive tape in there. There's nothing tying these by the ties that bind. There's nothing in between any of them. So they don't need to be in it. If they go that direction, I feel like they're making a poor choice, but we'll see.
Yep. All right, let's talk about a great choice that has been made.
Okay.
The choice to introduce a mid-tier women's title.
Yes. So that's a good choice. Absolutely.
So y'all go back to the archives. Y'all's heard us. It's been chatter about this for a while now. We've been saying, look, where's the time to bring in these women's U.S. title and potentially a women's intercontinental title? I remember some conversation where it was like, man, they can't even show off and showcase the tag titles. Why they need to introduce them?
So they still can't, but
correct.
I think that's the reason why they need to bring in the mid-card titles. What they need to do is they need to send the tag titles back down to NXT and let NXT do their thing down there, because they've only got one division and they've got a lot of women down in NXT coming up right now. They need to send the tag titles back, like who is it, Lash and Jackson, that are wrestling for the tag titles now. They somehow or another they need to put the belts on them, let them take those back to NXT, and then separate all the women tag teams on the main roster, except for the ones you may want to send back down. Send back down to NXT. Let all the women like Jade and Bianca and all them, then you get your normal tiers. You get your main event contenders. So like Jade, Bianca, Nia, Liv, blah, blah, blah. As far as when Charlotte comes back, she's definitely in that conversation. But then you take your Naomi's and your other women in there, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven. You put all them in their mid-tier division. And just let them do their thing. Let them all go out there and have something to work for instead of just coming out there for these 3-minute squash matches. And that's all we don't need that anymore. Those days are done. Give them some stakes to fight for.
I will say though, as a belt guy, I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little disappointed that they've decided to throw out a women's mid-tier belt and not give it a unique design.
No,
it's just
like
a smaller
title.
Yep, it's just a smaller U.S. title belt with a white strap.
Yeah, which is just like the women's WWE women's title.
I get it, but I wish there was some more effort to it. Just because I'm a belt guy.
I'm with you on that. But so here's the caveat to that,
as long
right?
as it ain't no damn butterfly belt.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Here's the caveat to it. They tried to go with an OG design on the women's tag belts, and you didn't like it. So sometimes you just stick with the formula that works, right? You go out and create. So that's the problem we have on the other channel. When you look over there, they got 100 different title designs on 100 different titles. I don't know which ones are worth anything. I don't know which ones are hell. I barely know who even has them. I know Mercedes has a women's title and Mariah May, and the only reason I know those two are women's champions is because they're gorgeous. So I'm always gonna look at them.
I feel like I need to go to confession, sir.
I
feel like I need to. You gonna be my priest for a second?
All right, I got you here.
Just tell me.
Forgive me, Father. You have sinned.
Yeah, just tell me how many Hail Marys I need to say.
All right, so are we about to talk about Mariah May? Because it's going to be a lot. I mean, I can only imagine what you're about to tell me right now.
No, sir.
I don't know if you wanted to put this over the air because your wife is a subscriber, so we need for her not to know what you think about during and all that other.
So, Father, the sin that I have committed is it's been 2 weeks since I've actually watched AEW.
Yeah. So, well, I watch on the follow up. So, like,
I ain't even watched the follow up
on the what is it? So, full disclosure again, it's Wednesday night when we're recording.
Right.
I ain't gonna watch it tonight. Sometime tomorrow, though, through the day around like 10:30, there ain't gonna be nothing on TV. I'll be at work. And I'll say, you know what? I need that background noise again. And I'll flip it on.
There's just been so much other TV content here lately that's caught my interest.
There's a lot of shows.
TV shows. It's just, I'm sorry, AEW. I've fallen out of love with you.
They're not putting on the product that
they're not.
That that's appealing. It's not must-see TV at this point. No. If I catch a recap of it online and there's something that I'm like, whoa, I need to see that, I go back and see it. But, I mean, how excited I was for the Hurt Business, the Hurt Syndicate to reform on Dynamite. And I'm like, oh, my God, I've been waiting for these guys for 3 years since they originally split up. This is going to be great. I watched it the first week, when they beat up Swerve, and I'm like, okay, now you're getting my interest back. Let's go.
Right.
Well, then the next week they came out and opened the show with a promo, and Swerve came out with a chain. They kept them apart, didn't let them touch, didn't really say anything of consequence. And I'm like, okay, it happened. Now what? I'm like, and I get it. I mean, you're introducing a character in Bobby Lashley. You can't do everything with him on week one. But you can do more than what you did, right? I mean, introduce him, let him come out there, but put him in a match. Lashley ain't the kind of guy that don't like to work, right? Let's see it. Let's see what you got. You already had Shelton wrestle. You already had MVP manage. Let's get Bobby out there. If you're not positioning him for a world title match or a one-on-one match against Swerve, then what are we doing? So,
like I'm sure they're gonna have a pay-per-view at least. I think there's one in November.
They got Full Gear coming. Yeah, so that's what happened. Swerve challenged Lashley to Full Gear.
I'll catch it and maybe get caught up on some things storyline wise, but it's just it ain't happening for me with AEW.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so I was really invested in the Tony Storm thing, right? Mm. Tony Storm's gone. Okay. Oh, nice. So
she went to go make a movie apparently.
Yeah, she got the hell out of Dodge. I ain't mad at her. She was like, I'd rather go do Queens of the Ring, the JR produced movie that I'll probably check out at some point, over hanging out here. I get it. So Britt Baker, right? Love Britt Baker. Always a pretty woman, pretty girl. Apparently single recently. She ain't hit me up on them DMs yet, so I'm not exactly her biggest fan right now. She ain't replying back to their messages, but I mean, I would enjoy watching her, right? She's gone. She's off TV. Don't see her no more. So I'm like, okay. So here's the two things that I was coming to y'all's show for. Took it all away from me.
And then so we'll get back on track here, but just as far as AEW,
got a bag on AEW before, but we had bagged on AEW in a couple weeks. We gotta
get there.
Yeah, we gotta give them some anti-love.
But let's go back to this women's US belt. We've been calling for this for a while. I'm excited about it. I don't know how they're going to get there as far as who's going to be the overall, the person awarded the belt, how it's going to happen, whether it's tournament, whatever. Somebody threw out an idea today that I absolutely love. They're like, well, what about bringing, the Mae Young Classic back, and whoever wins the Mae Young Classic wins the U.S. belt.
Yeah, you could do that.
And that's a brilliant idea in my mind.
Yeah.
But I would invite everybody from NXT, SmackDown, and Raw. Y'all all compete for that, right?
So I saw on Raw this past week, they had a lot of women interacting in, some kind of form, fashion, or whatever the case may be. They probably had like 6 to 8 women out there, all ranging from both women's champions all the way through the roster almost. I mean, you could take those 8 and just have them go in an 8-way or something.
Here's what I don't want to see. Please don't give me some 40 women Royal Rumble.
So not
please
that.
Don't give me that. Hey,
we're too far away from the Rumble to even wait for that.
If anything, look, you're too close to Survivor Series to get something going together to try to see for the winner for that. If anything, y'all got a Saturday night's main event coming up.
Yeah.
Throw on the tournament, start it next week. Let the final be at Saturday night's main event.
Yeah.
That's something like that, right?
Yeah, there's got to be something. But I mean, I'm all for the mid-card titles because we know Charlotte's coming back soon, and
please don't. No.
Well, as soon as she comes back, she's going straight for the main title because that's pretty much what Charlotte does. She comes in, wrestles for the main title, gets hurt, goes away for a year.
Now, all right, so let's do this before we get on to our main topic. Give me your pick of who you would put that belt on.
So if I had to pick today and that's a SmackDown title, right? Am I following that?
So the word on the street is everybody within the WWE can compete for it. Mm-hmm. But it was introduced on SmackDown, so you would think that
right. So it'll live on SmackDown.
Right.
So if I'm thinking I want to keep it on SmackDown for the first champion, I would give it to Chelsea Green. Simply because I wanted Chelsea Green to win various things over the last year, but I get it why she's not a she's not a main women's champion. I get it because you're trying to do storylines and Chelsea's more comedic relief. But I mean, she's paid off for the company in more ways than one over the last 6 to 8 months. She needs to be rewarded for that, right? The reward would be winning that title. And then Zack Ryder, when he was wrestling in WWE, he won the United States. That was his first singles title. So it would kind of be poetic justice if her first singles title win in WWE was the United States title too. I would say give it to her because she's paid off in droves. She needs to be rewarded with it. So I would pick her.
I like your pick. The only other person that I was thinking about that I would maybe get there, maybe Io Sky. Maybe, something like that.
So I thought about Io too, but Io just won the the number one contendership for the main title.
Yeah, she's back in the main number one contendership.
Yeah, she just won that at the last Raw. So I'm like, well, she's going against Liv Morgan.
The only other thing is maybe Tiffy. If Tiffy
same thing, she's got money in the bank for the world title again.
No. She's got money in the bank for a title.
Yeah. So
what if
you don't money in the bank for a mid card now?
What if she does?
She does.
Just saying. What if she does?
And then they'll have bumbled the money in the bank another time. Yeah, that's another money in the bank bumbled. That would be both money in the banks this year bungled. So
could be a returning Becky Lynch.
Same thing, right? She's so if you're going to develop a mid-card title, you don't put your main eventers back in that spot because they dominate the spear again, right?
But I do like Chelsea Green as the pick. I think that overall, as far as the women right now, she is probably the one that I like to see on screen the most because she is so entertaining.
Yeah, for no reason. She doesn't force it. She doesn't. Nope. She doesn't go so overboard that you're just like, oh my God, she doesn't beat you over the face with, you're going to laugh at my comedy. She's just naturally in the right place at the right time and knows what reactions to make.
The spot she did over at Crown Jewel was phenomenal.
Exactly. I mean,
she mulled over doing that jump from 4 different spots and ultimately missed everybody and just landed in Piper's arms.
Exactly. But if you go back and think about every event she's been in this year, she's had a spot like that in every match that she's been in, where there was a tease of, she was scared of the ladder in the Money in the Bank match. She was scared of heights. She always finds the niche in the match to make it stand out for just her.
But it's more than comedic though, because she took that spot off top of the ladder onto tables on the floor.
Yeah, she can definitely go. But I mean, that's what her lead into it. Right. She can always make a comedic lead into whatever the case may be, but she tailors it to whatever the situation is. Like I said, she was scared of ladders in the ladder match. Everybody else was doing their finish off the top, and she was nervous about that, but she did it and didn't hit. I mean,
speaking of Chelsea Green, did you know she was Canadian?
Yeah.
I had no clue. I didn't. Yeah. I thought she was like a Jersey girl or something.
No, Well, that's because you associated with Matt Cardona.
Right.
But she's Canadian. I remember her when she was the crazy girl over at TNA. So I mean, I remember her from a long time back.
She was just on Sheamus's workout YouTube channel, right? Doing the Brave Warrior workouts.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how she got started, and I had no idea. She went to Lance Storm's wrestling school.
That's where she originated from.
She
came
out of that. Incredible.
So, she's been around a long time. Like I said, she was in TNA in like the early to mid, like the early 2010s. So she was doing the crazy girl over there, with the weird makeup and the whole wedding dress and the broken heart and tears and all. So I mean, she's got a lot of history in wrestling. She's been around a long time, and she's main evented over there. She was a TNA world champ, women's world champ for a long time. So she's got the chops. It's just here she doesn't fit that role for the main event because, as we talked about on the men's side, the bottleneck. Yeah. There's so many top guys over there, you can't fit everybody in. So that's why you create a women's division, a mid-card division for women, for someone like Chelsea Green to be able to showcase her talents.
All right, let's get on into the topic here.
That wasn't the topic?
Nah, that wasn't the topic.
Hell.
That wasn't the topic. I
was getting comfortable in here. I thought we were getting ready to go to town.
Let's get on into the topic, though, of bad guys. And this kind of spurred out of a conversation with Razor Ramon.
He is the
bad guy. What was he saying at the Hall of Fame? Good times. What was it? I forgot how.
Oh hell, brought it up.
I forgot how it went.
I know at the end of it is good as bad guys never die, but
bad guys last. Something I don't know. But all I know is when you
look it up out there and send it to our social.
When you talk about a list of bad guys, Razor Ramon definitely on the top tier.
He was the bad guy.
But yeah, so we kind of got into a conversation where, we've kind of looked at Cody's run, and we've talked about it on the podcast. At the time, I believe we gave Cody's run maybe a B plus, somewhere around in there, right? That's what we gave Cody's run. And then you had made a comment. You were like, man, I think it's almost time to take the belt off of him,
Yeah.
And we got to talking about who would be the bad guy to take it off.
And therein lies the problem, right?
And that's the problem that we started noticing. We took a look around the WWE landscape, and we were like, well, hell, every bad guy that you think may be credible is tied up in a feud with a group, or they're in a faction or a tag team. But we got to looking around, we were like, damn, WWE needs more bad guys, right?
Yeah, well, then some of the established bad guys you had recently flipped over, like Damian Priest. He was kind of the de facto leader of Judgment Day, where he was able to be a single while the other guys were doing their own thing. Now he flipped. Judgment Day turned on him. Now he's a face. On the other channel you had Roman, who was kind of coming back, when we thought he was going to be a bad guy. Well, then the Bloodline flipped on him. So now he's a good guy. And then now he's packaged into a good guy group. So, I mean, hell, you're not leaving any individual guys to say, hey, I'm going after the title. I mean, we came up with a handful, but that's a small ass handful.
Yeah, so let's talk about the handful. So we got on the Raw brand, we looked and we saw, now granted, we're talking about single competitors. Not anybody that's mixed up in a faction, not anybody that's mixed up in a tag team. And no, we did not count Gunther into this list because technically he is
still Imperium.
He's part of a faction.
Ludwig Kaiser's walking out there he was just out there with him this past week, taking the beating for Damian Priest. So Gunther didn't have to. So he's part of Imperium. He's still in he's still in a group.
So we found 3 lone wolf, so to speak, when it comes to bad guys.
Well, we didn't find the lone wolf because his ass is
he's
cut.
gone. He's been future endeavored.
Exactly. We may see him on the other channel coming up here soon, but we definitely ain't gonna see him on WWE.
But we saw Bronson Reed, Drew McIntyre,
who ain't even here. He's been on the shelf for 3 months.
Braun Breaker, which Braun, I mean, there's an argument to be made. You know, maybe he's not. I mean, with the fans that are cheering and barking like the dogs. I mean,
that's a catch-22 on that. You may he's been in that tweener territory, and we talked about. You know, there's a lot of guys because like I asked about like Seth Rollins. I'm like, well, why isn't he? You know, and you're like, yeah, but he's a face right now. I'm like, well, yeah, but in 2 months when he starts wrestling CM Punk, who's going heel in that angle? You know, it's gonna be Seth, but we ain't there yet, so we don't want to pre-predict. But yeah, Braun Breaker's kind of in that, you know, when he was fighting Jey Uso for a little while, you know, he was showing him respect. He was shaking his hand. They were leaning towards the face. Then he backstabbed him the week after and started spearing. They were leaning towards the heel. I don't think they know where the hell they want to go with him. I think they're just like, let's just get him out here because he's good and we'll figure it out night by night where we want to go, which... That ain't doing nothing, no credit to him, but I mean, hey, it is what it is.
And then we flipped and we looked at the SmackDown brand and we saw.
Well, there's got to be more on SmackDown then, right? Because we only really got 2 over on Raw actively wrestling.
Well, you got Logan Paul.
So he ain't actively wrestling. We didn't see Logan Paul since before we saw damn Drew McIntyre.
You got Shinsuke.
That's not better. We haven't seen Shinsuke. So have we seen him this year?
No.
Okay, well.
You got KO.
Okay, yeah, we got KO. And just flipped heel.
And we got Carmelo Hayes.
Is he really a heel, though? I mean...
Back and forth. So when he left NXT, he was a heel.
Yeah, because he turned on Trick. And I mean, but then when he came up, you know, he was number 2. He was like the number 1 or first round draft pick. You know, he came in and everybody was like, oh, you know, when he shoots, he don't miss. And they were, you know, Corey Graves was hyping him up like he was, you know, the next big thing.
But, you know, as he came in, though, you know, he had that cocky, arrogant attitude, chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Heel qualities.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got the series that he's ran back with Andrade, but Andrade's the face in that.
Is he the Can Charlotte Flair's husband really be a face? I mean,
no.
By nature alone, he's got to be a heel, doesn't he? None of those Flairs know how to do face really good.
But in the long run, when you talk about these 7 guys that we're looking at,
3 of them who ain't even there. So, so in reality, we're saying 5.
And
between 2 brands,
and 3 out of the 5 are the only legitimate ones that I really see.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, we love Carmelo on this channel. We want to see him do great things, but he ain't main event level just yet.
And then I mean, so those 3 would be KO, Bronson Reed, and Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, and like I said, Drew's not really here. I mean, now granted, he could come back at any time because he's not medically out or anything like that. He just worked like he was a workhorse over the last 8 months, so he deserved a break. Good on him, right? You know, apparently he's over in Europe visiting family and touring with his family and all.
So I think though, and we didn't get into conversation about this prior, so let's bring it up now because it just popped in my head. Maybe the heel that we're looking for to take it off of Cody has not been revealed yet. Maybe,
there's more to come on.
Maybe that heel is Randy Orton.
So Randy's not a heel just yet, but same thing, you know, kind of pre-predicting like we are with Seth and CM Punk.
He does. Look, I'm going to throw in a biblical reference. You ready for this?
All right, let's see what we got here.
Biblical reference.
Oh, Lord.
Randy Orton looks at that belt like David was looking at Bathsheba.
True. Yeah.
He's looking.
You think he could send Cody off to war, and then, you know, he could just pick up the scraps?
He got lust in his heart.
I mean,
he's lust in his eyes.
I was gonna say he's more like Hulk Hogan looking at the lovely Elizabeth because he's got lust, Elizabeth, lust in your heart, Hulk Hogan. Yeah. Good Lord.
Good old Macho Man. Right?
Oh, we love a Macho Man reference here, but I mean. And so here's the thing, right? Let's call a spade a spade. I feel like we're looking at this situation because I feel like this is what Triple H came from, right?
Yeah.
When he was in the Attitude Era, you had basically one guy, and that was Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was the one guy that never really got affiliated with the group in those late 90s.
One time.
Well, that was late. That was in the 2000s. That's when he joined the McMahon Corporation. That was like You're 2001 and going on. He was half injured and all that. He wasn't even really in the ring then. Yeah. But when he was at his hottest, so let's say 97, 98, 99, he was never in a faction. But every other guy was in some kind of faction, right? The Rock was in the Corporation. Triple H was in DX. Triple H was in the Corporation. Undertaker was in the Ministry. All your top guys were tied in somewhere with other groups, right? And then Stone Cold stood alone. I feel like Triple H is going down the same marker right now because Cody's in that Stone Cold era where he's kind of the only guy that's a single, and every other guy's kind of tied into something. And then you break a guy. So like for a while, Cody, Randy, and KO were in a little faction of their own. Right. Well, then you branch KO off as the bad guy, and then he wrestles the two guys. I mean, that's the DX mentality. That's the Rock. That's the Rock and the Nation mentality. That's every other faction that we've come across as mentality because that's what Triple H saw worked once. So he wants to live back into it. So I get it, but we know it, right? So the fact that we know it, don't we want something new?
So exactly. We want something new, especially the Cody Crybabies. We want something new. Hunter, if you're out there surfing Twitter like you say you are, and you're actually watching what people say and it's making a difference in your booking, please, I beg you, look at all the Cody Crybabies that want Cody to break away from this Bloodline story.
Well, that's a given.
They want Cody away from all of this.
That's a given.
I'm tired of him being associated with all of this.
True, and the problem
where
is,
do you go with him?
That's the thing. The problem is, no matter how you spin it, the Bloodline's still the hottest thing in the WWE right now. There's nothing that's picked up more steam. There's nothing that's overtaken it, but that's all associated to Roman Reigns. So if you're not gonna pit Roman and Cody against each other, then Cody doesn't need to orbit. He doesn't need to circle that orbit. The problem is
they're both on the same damn show.
Well, the biggest problem is they're both on the same show. So that means they're gonna, encounter each other one way or the other. The secondary problem though is unless it's Cody and Randy Orton, Cody and KO is kind of secondary to what the Bloodline's doing, right? So now you got your world title on a mid-card level almost. They're kind of the middle of the card match or the opening match if you're going to end with the Roman thing. So to keep the title at the main event level, you almost have to associate it with the Bloodline somehow or another because the Bloodline's overshadowing things. Look at Crown Jewel a couple weekends ago. Bloodline had to open because they wanted them as far away from the end, the end thing that they were doing with Cody and Liv. They needed the Bloodline so far away from it that nobody was, God forbid, chanting for Roman to come out and win the damn big title and, be that guy, which probably would have been better. But, at the end of the day, they're trying to make Cody the face of the company, and you don't do that by having Roman overshadow him all the time. So, I mean, it's a dangerous game you're playing. When they did it with Austin, they had The Rock doing the same thing where he was kind of overshadowing some of the stuff Austin did. So you had to eventually just put the two together and just say, okay, you got to go against each other because you're both drawing equal, cheers from the fans. You're both at this same peak level.
That's the difference, though. That's the difference. But you made the analogy a while ago that was great between Stone Cold and Cody, but that's also the difference between Stone Cold and Cody. Stone Cold, he was the guy that was kind of like the vigilante.
Yeah, he was anti-establishment.
He was anti-establishment.
Cody's all day establishment.
Dude, he's white meat babyface.
Yeah,
so it's like he's all goody two shoes.
So yeah,
it's like there's nothing that he can step into right now where the closest he came was the match against AJ, where AJ
right, and that was his very first defense. So now we're talking May,
but that's where AJ said I quit, and he still hit him with the steps, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like he started bleeding into that, and I was like, cool. Lean into that. Yeah. And then they didn't. They came right back out of it.
So Cody cleared that up. Remember he said, if I turn.
I go scorched earth.
Right. He's like, I got to go Homelander. I can't.
Right.
He can't be Austin because Austin was the perfect tweener where he was anti-establishment enough that if you want a white baby face, if that's all you're looking for, you're going to boo Austin.
And see, that's
but if you're okay with the brash, the cussing, the middle finger, if you're okay with all that because he's anti-establishment and you're looking at Vince as the bad guy, then you could still get behind Austin. But Cody can't be that guy, right? Because he is a company man. I mean, he's a politician, tried and true, right? He could actually won that election last week had he ran. He would have won by a landslide.
So I feel like, though, that's where Cody's going to start sliding into John Cena territory before too long. I really do believe.
That's probably a better analogy than Stone Cold.
I really do believe. Now, look, I love Cody. I'm a Cody fan. I'm a Cody crybaby.
Yeah. You and Dave LaGreca.
I got my pink bathrobe at home and everything, right?
There you go.
So,
bunny slipper.
So I love Cody to death. But there's going to come a time where I do want to see Cody make this turn. And I just don't think the WWE, just like John Cena, they're not going to pull the trigger.
No. So the only way they're going to do that is if they get
too much kids involved.
The only way they'll get to that point is if they get a replacement, another guy that's the equal of Cody in the babyface territory.
Right. And they kind of got an equal if they start spinning him further, and that's Roman. You could spin Roman the other way eventually and get him white meat babyface.
Yeah, you definitely could, but we tried that once and it didn't necessarily work. I see Roman fit more in that Austin territory where he's always going to be.
So that's the whole vigilante, but still got the sales and the popularity of
the
white meat baby.
So that's what I think Roman's going to live now, because we tried the whole John Cena thing and that was an epic fail. And then we went complete the opposite and went, Hollywood Hogan NWO heel, right. And that got over like hotcakes. So you're never gonna white meat babyface Roman again. I think at this point now, he's always got to live in that Austin territory. And I do think you're right. I think Cody has to live more in that Cena role where he's just always going to be that guy. And unfortunately for you, I'd never see Cody going heel.
I don't think I'll ever get my homeland
unless there's another guy that can get to Cody level of fandom. And if that guy's out there, he ain't in the WWE just yet.
Now, I will say this. I love Cody as the white meat baby face.
Mm-hmm.
Cody as Homelander might, if he's able to flip that and it plays out how I think it will play out, that might actually be my favorite wrestler of all time.
So at that point, it would be Hollywood Hogan. Yeah. I mean, him turning would be the equivalent of Hogan joining the NWO. It would be
amazing.
Yeah, that would be epic. I mean, and you can take it as far as you package him in with like a Paul Heyman kind of guy and turn on Roman. Oh my God!
Even let him keep the stars and stripes. Just change.
Oh yeah,
he can keep it to black and white.
Complete the Homelander.
Yeah.
He can keep the colors. He can keep the red, white. He can just go out there and just say the things and do the things that Homelander does. As he's taking out babyface left and babyface right, just obliterating these guys. There's so many ways. That's a whole nother show we can get into. We've got another hour on that whole topic that we can wander down.
We've talked about bad guys and who would be the bad guy to step up and take the belt off Cody, and we're in the conversation with Cody becoming Homelander.
Yeah, so you got to find a guy you got to, like, if you take a Randy and you put the title on Randy, then you flip Cody and let him chase after, as a bad guy. But like you said, a scorched earth bad guy. Now I'm just as intrigued as I am with the Bloodline. At this point, that overtakes the Bloodline as the primary story because you don't have anything in the can for Roman that's better than what we just talked about right now. So now you got Roman and his team saying, well, hell, we got The Rock in the can. We got Jacob Fatu. We could get up to there. So now you start getting so if you put Roman and the Bloodline on Raw, right? Now you're back into that same competitive nature of, hold on, we can do better than what you did. No, well, wait a minute. We got more viewers. We can do a little bit better here. That's when you start getting the two brands competing against each other. You get the characters competing against each other. That's when you start making it interesting again. That's when you're an Attitude Era type fandom.
All right, everybody, they're giving us the wrap-up sign. We got to get out of the way. We got to let them start setting up the ring and everything else here for the fight. We got to get out the way. But everybody, thank you for listening to today's podcast. We appreciate y'all. And with that, we bid you adieu.
Round 1, fight!
Today's podcast was produced by SBP. You can find our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Also, connect with us on our social media accounts. Search for The Bookers Alliance on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X.